Handling codependency issues with friends and families requires you to look at why and where the codependency is coming from. In lay terms, codependency is I feel better when they feel better, I feel worse when they feel worse. When you're attached to somebody at that level, you're not helping them and you're certainly not helping yourself. You know, feeling a certain way based on another person feels is a very unhealthy way to live. And what ends up happening is that you start to forget who you are as a person, and you start to allow yourself to let other situations, people, places, and things and relationships in your life suffer. The more time you put into trying to make somebody else feel better, the less you're taking care of yourself. Our model of intervention, which is very similar to the model of the craft theory, is you don't reward negative behavior. You reward positive behavior. And when you are codependent to somebody, it's just like enabling. You actually send the message that their negative behaviors have something called positive consequences. Behavior is not necessarily defined by the pros and cons in and of itself. It's defined by the outcome of what you get from the behavior. So in other words, the more you get a positive outcome, the more of a behavior you will engage in. And until there's a negative consequence versus a positive, you're not going to change that behavior. So when you're codependent or you enable, whether you're a friend or a family member, you actually create a scenario to where they learn a behavior that committing negative behaviors or acting out negative behaviors is something that brings a positive outcome. So in other words, if your loved one, if you're codependent to them and you're enabling them and they lie every day and they excel in their addiction or their mental health or the dysfunctional behaviors, they actually receive a positive reward for that. And it goes against everything the craft model of intervention and addiction treatment says. So when you're codependent, you're actually sending the message of rewarding negative behavior. And it doesn't move people through the stages of change when you do that. Because remember, when you're codependent, you think it's all about your loved one, but it's not. It's all about you. And until you do something called detach, which most of you have heard of, you're going to continue to send the message of validation for what it is that they're doing. And you should never be in a position to where you need to feel better because somebody else does, or somebody else's demise makes you feel worse. And I mean, listen, that happens to everybody. If somebody we love is sick, we get depressed. If somebody's happy, we are happy for them. I don't mean that. I mean in addiction and mental health. You know, codependency is technically not a disorder by the way of the DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual, published by the American Psychiatric Association. But dependent personality disorder is. And the biggest difference in those two things is the nature of the relationship. Whereas a dependent personality disorder, a person with that, is codependent in all relationships, where somebody who is codependent has the same behaviors, but it's specific. In other words, in addiction and mental health. Either way, both codependency and dependent personality disorder take away your ability to be who you are. It takes away your values and your morals. And it doesn't help the other person, and it isn't helping you. So when I look at friends and family members in a family system, and I look at a substance user or somebody with a mental disorder, it's very difficult for them to learn that their negative behaviors are actually, should have negative outcomes. People think you gotta want help and hit bottom. Codependency actually prevents that. So the best advice I have for you is to look at where your codependency and your enabling is coming from, and not so much what it's doing for your loved one, but what it's doing for you.